This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by my good friend and top trainer, Jamie Moore. Jamie, about a week and a half on from Leeds now. I'm sure you're all still riding the high of Jack Catterall's big victory against Josh Taylor. But how is everything? How are we?
Yeah, good mate. It's good. It's been a bit of a crest of a wave for the last 10 days. It was Jack's wedding as well yesterday, so we've been there for a couple of days, just at a place in Knutsford, really nice place, and it was a beautiful wedding. So just got back and done a couple of hours with the lads in the gym now, and then straight home.
Well, it's good to see. Obviously, congratulations from myself and everyone here at Seconds Out on Jack and getting married. We know that there was obviously a few implications when the fight got delayed about it, and we saw it with the matchroom behind the scenes footage that Sam said we might not be able to do the fight because he was getting married. But
Yeah,
everything's all gone swimmingly well as it seems. Jack got the win. He's got married. Um, Obviously, we've already seen the reports, and Sam said it himself that he was going to be looking for the next fight quick, and we seem to be getting somewhere. Offers are made. Just talk to us from what you know as the trainer about Jack Catterall's next move.
yeah. Well, apparently they're in talks with Barbosa about maybe a final eliminator for the WBO, which would obviously be Teofimo Lopez. So obviously that's a fight what we'd be interested in. It would make sense for Jack. I think Progray's been mentioned, and they're talking about a quick turnaround. They're talking something like the end of August, something like 12 weeks time. Which I spoke to Jack about, and Jack's up for it as long as he feels okay when he gets back in the gym. So when he gets back in, he said he's going to get back in at the beginning of next week. So they haven't planned going away on a honeymoon or anything because they knew if there was a fight, you know, what would be offered, then they'd probably look at taking it because he knows, he's at that point in his career now where he can't afford to be having or take his foot off the gas and be having breaks because he's wanted momentum for a long time now. So while he got it, they need to sort of keep riding the wave. And yeah, I think end of August, as long as he comes back in the gym and he feels okay, then let's do it.
And out of the two names that you've mentioned there, Regis Prograis and Arnold Barboza Jr., which one do you like the look of more?
I like both fights for Jack, to be honest. I've always said that Prograis is a phenomenal fighter, but I believe Jack's style is good for someone like that. I think Barbosa again is a good style for us. You know, I think he was very fortunate in his last fight to win, but it puts Jack in a position where if he beats him, he's in front of Teofimo Lopez, and I've said it for 2 years now. I believe Jack's the best 140-pound fighter on the planet, and he just needs the opportunity to prove it. And I think the Taylor fight, he would have got lessons from. He would learn from that and improve from it because Josh Taylor, for me, was the best he'd performed since the Regis Prograis fight, especially in that second half of the fight. Because Jack hurt him and went through the gears in the fourth and fifth round and probably gassed himself a little bit by the sixth and needed to sort of take his foot off and recover. And that allowed Josh to come back into the fight. And Josh really put it on Jack and shown the qualities what he's shown us in the past. So I think the lessons what Jack will take on board from that and will make him a better fighter in the long run. And it's probably come at a good time because if he's going to be going in with the likes of Lopez, hopefully in the not too distant future, then he's going to have needed that type of experience to be able to come out on top.
And within the stable, I know you've had a new fighter come in, a fighter that has been hotly spoke about, Adam Hamed. Just talked about having him in the gym and what's he like. We've seen him make his debut last year on the Usyk Dubois card, but it seems there's a plan in place now. There's a structure. He's got a solid training team. Sam Jones and his dad both managing. Frank Warren promoting. What's the plan with Adam?
Yeah, I'm excited about him. He's a lovely kid. They're a nice family. Him and his brother Sammy are training with us, and just experience. He needs to get experience. They've never boxed from an amateur background, but you can see they've been around boxing all their life. It looks similar to my own son, to be honest. So they're better than somebody who you would expect who's not boxed amateur. Um, you know, we've seen many people turn pro who've not boxed as amateurs and had successful careers. So so it's not the be all and end all, although it does help. So I think the way we manage it is we just manage it fight by fight. He's getting experience in the gym. There's a lot of fighters in and around that weight division in my gym. Very good fighters. So they're getting class sparring, really good experience in sparring. And then we take it fight by fight and just see how it goes. But it'll be an exciting journey because he can punch. He can really punch, and genetics. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so they say. And he's got a lot of charisma. But like I say, he's a lovely kid, and I'm enjoying working with him.
One thing that I think a lot of British boxing fans have spoke about, and when you see the likes of Conor Benn, Campbell Hatton, when they've turned over and gone pro, there's always that added bit of pressure because of the name and the status that their father holds within the sport. Um, Obviously, we know Adam's going to have the same thing, but how do you help him as a trainer? Because you're not just training him boxing, but you're almost teaching him how to deal with boxing mentally as well. Um, how do you help him to be able to handle the pressure that's going to go along with him on his professional journey?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, there's no way around it. You just got to sort of deal with it head on. And it is unfair. You get compared to your dad because it's two different human beings. But in many ways, I think they do have some advantage because they grow up around boxing. So the sort of pressure and the atmosphere and the sort of everything what comes with it, they sort of live through it as kids. So they're more used to it than somebody else would be. So they sort of swings and roundabouts. There is more pressure, but they sort of generally seem to be used to being around that type of stuff. I've got to say, I admire fighters like Campbell Hatton. You know, they don't have to do what they're doing. They come from families and from backgrounds where they've done really well for themselves, and they could easily do something easier than boxing. So, I did it when I started boxing. I did it out of desperation because I needed to make a better life for myself. They don't have that need. So, for them to do it is actually more admirable than it would be for someone like myself because they're comfortable. So, they must have a fire inside them to want to prove something. And maybe it is that. Maybe they want to step out of the dad's shadow and be their own sort of man, which is admirable in a way that they want to do it in the toughest sport in the world. So Adam's coming along really well, and I've said it to him. He's going to get compared to his dad. It's not going to be easy. He's going to get remarks, because his dad was an absolute legend. But hopefully he'll forge his own path and make his own name for himself.
And then while I've got you here, obviously we've had a very big couple, I'd say about a month or so in boxing, especially in the heavyweight division. Obviously, just this past weekend we saw the 5v5. I know I've already had your thoughts on Fury Usyk. But when we look at this 5v5, we saw two monster heavyweight fights with Daniel Dubois and Filip Hrgović, and then Deontay Wilder versus Zhilei Zhang. We'll start off with the younger Brit, Daniel Dubois. A fight where not a lot of people were giving him a chance. He was a slight underdog, but just because he's the underdog, it didn't stop him. He went in there and secured a brilliant stoppage in the eighth round. Just give me your thoughts on that fight from Daniel Dubois.
I thought it was a great performance, and it's just proof in the pudding that fighters are learning on the job, and even highly experienced amateurs doesn't convert into experience in the pros, and learning how to navigate the longer distances, the 10s and 12s, and coming through tough rounds. I'd watched Dubois and looked at him and thought to myself, does he feel a bit sorry for himself? Is he a bit of an on-top fighter? But I think it looks like he's learned from that, and he's really sort of gone away, focused on the areas where he probably let himself down, and he's come back, and it was a fantastic performance against Hrgović. I think the people are talking about him versus AJ next, which is an unbelievable fight. I believe stylistically it's a really good blend. I just believe maybe he's getting AJ at the wrong time, because if he'd have got him 12 months ago, I'd be like, flip a coin and see who wins that one. It's a real toss up. But I just believe that AJ's probably coming into the best form of his career at the minute, and he's probably not at the right time for Daniel. But everyone's eyes will be on that fight if he gets made.
Something about Daniel, so you've already kind of mentioned it. But in the defeats that he suffered to Joyce and Usyk, his heart and his desire has always been questioned in those defeats. But I think since something that fans have noticed since he's teamed up with Don Charles not has only improved his actual boxing, but he's improved the mental strength because Dubois seems a much hungrier fighter now than what he has ever before, and you can see it when he's talking at press conferences, especially when he's normally quite a silent character. Um, just talk to me about, I guess, Daniel's desire and how, while that desire is always there because he's grown up in boxing, it's starting to show through now, and he's starting to weather the storms and battle through those tough moments.
Yeah, just I think it's an individual thing. You know, I don't think there's anyone what can teach you that. You have to just do it for yourself. In many ways, it was similar to what happened to me. I lost to Scott Dixon in my 13th fight, and it was a tough fight. I started to gas, and I felt sorry for myself. And in all honesty, it made me evaluate myself and look at myself. I had to be honest with myself and go, listen, you could have dug deeper there. And it made me win fights in the future. And I was involved in Fight of the Year 3 times because I went through that experience. And I think it's very similar to Daniel. He's looked at himself. He's sort of thought to himself, you know what, I probably could have dug a little bit deeper there. And it's made him a better fighter for it in the future. So yeah, every you can take so many lessons from different experiences. And you know, I just don't see how your coach can make you mentally tougher. You know, unless they've done a degree in psychology, then that type of stuff, that grit and determination, vast majority of it is down to you. You have to find it from somewhere, and it looks like he's found his way of doing it, and it's paying off, and I'm happy for him.
I think one of the things that's also been a big key is the fact that he's got his dad in his corner as well, and a lot of people are speculating, kind of saying it kind of adds a sense of security for him because he knows no matter what happens, he's got his dad nearby. And at the end of the day, in a lot of people's lives, one of the most important people that you'd look up to is your father. Um, but obviously, if we look at Daniel as well for experience wise, he's only a 26-year-old, which is a very young for a heavyweight at his level.
Yeah,
And he's already been in there with Joyce, Usyk, and then, Jarrell Miller, Philip Hergovich, and all these other big names. It's
yeah,
if let's say if we look at where we're getting to that era of the heavyweight division now where Usyk, AJ, Fury, they're all getting on a bit. We're going to talk about Deontay Wilder in a few minutes and what's next for him. But Dubois has got so much time on his side still, hasn't he?
yeah. And maybe the AJ fight's not the right fight for him at this moment in time. You know, because AJ is a phenomenal fighter and a huge puncher. So so Daniel at 26, I know financially an AJ fight is the sort of holy grail for heavyweights still. And if it's offered to him, he'll probably take it. But if he was looking at it purely from a career perspective, then he's probably got another couple of years of growing and learning and getting improving and getting better. And potentially, you know, in 2 or 3 years' time, when the your U6 Furies and AJs are probably gone, then he'd be up and around the top end of the heavyweight division, I'd expect, because of the way he's sort of took those lessons on board and improved.
And then moving on to talk about Deontay Wilder, obviously, when we look at last week and the build-up, a lot of fans was sat there watching the build-up content thinking, yeah, Wilder's got that spark back, he's got that killer back inside of him, but it just didn't seem to kick into place on fight night. Zhilei Zhang was simply too big, too strong, and put a brutal end to the fight in the fifth round. Where,
Yeah.
before we talk about the fight itself, where does Deontay Wilder go from here?
I just think every fighter gets to that stage in the career where they just can't do what they could do before. And, you know, Wilder's a phenomenal puncher. I was ringside in Las Vegas when he knocked out who was it? Southpaw Cuban. Um, can't think of his name. Forgot his name, but the right hand
Luis
what he
Ortiz, is it
landed.
Luis Ortiz?
Ortiz, that's right. Yeah, yeah. He detonated a right hand on him. I've never heard a punch as hard in my life. I swear it was brutal. So, a lot of that stuff is timing, and your timing tends to go a little bit as you get older, and it's just miles on the clock. And I think the two Fury fights, the second and third fight, really took it out of him. I think a lot of the time you're never sort of the same when you have to drag yourself through fights like that at that stage of your career. So, if he's got the right people around him, if he was in my gym, I'd be saying to him, "Listen, you've had an unbelievable career. You've earned more money than you'll ever need. Go and enjoy your life. Go and relax now because you've done you've done your part. You've left a mark on the sport. You've been a world champion. You've earned your money. Get out while you're healthy."
And one thing that I'd like to ask as well, what if this is it for Deontay Wilder? What legacy does he leave behind? Because everyone can, you could just need to go on YouTube and search up Deontay Wilder, and you've got a huge list of different knockouts. But when you look at his
Yeah,
accolades,
exactly.
especially the reason as to why he got into the sport, what legacy does he leave behind in your eyes?
Without a doubt, he'll always be known as one of the hardest punchers to ever lace a pair of gloves up. For the next 20, 30 years, his knockouts, he'll have highlight reels on YouTube being watched over and over again for years to come. So he's left his mark. He won't be known as one of the most technically gifted heavyweights because he wasn't, but he made up for that in the power what he possessed. And he had a chance of beating anybody when he was at his best, which was probably around about the first Fury fight or just before, and then the hard rounds with Fury, 30, how many was it, 32 rounds or something of hard rounds with Fury. It's going to take its toll. So I think he'll be remembered as a dynamite puncher, and a very, very exciting heavyweight.
And when we look at the fight itself, what did you make of the performance from both men? Obviously, it wasn't the fight we were all expecting. But
Yeah.
when you sat down watching it on Saturday night, what was going through your mind as that fight played out?
Yeah, I just thought the same thing as I thought last time when Wilder fought. I mean, even though I'm probably not giving Zhang any type of credit here for it, because I think obviously he's a big heavyweight and he's a southpaw and he's got a lot of good attributes for someone that size. And it takes someone with that sort of ability to do a job on Wilder like that. But I just looked at Wilder thinking, you're just not the same fighter he was. He didn't seem to have that air aura about him where you felt that any moment he could detonate a shot and it'd be over. He seems to have lost that aura. And yeah, I mean, I know there's loads of videos going about of him sort of spinning around, and he did it in like a training video where he'd done it before. But Zhang's a handful for anyone in the world at heavyweight. He's a big guy. He's very intelligent, and he's a southpaw, and not many people like southpaws.
What do you make of the training? I think one of the big things that's been spoke about since the fight, obviously, like you said, the clip going around of him doing whatever he was doing, then that little spin at the end, and then obviously doing it in the ring. But a lot of people are saying that ever since he is partnered up with Malik Scott, a man that he knocked out in 2013, he's just not looked the same fight. Obviously, you've got the accumulation of the fights with Fury, where he's going to have took a lot out of him. But a lot of people are also putting a lot of it down to the training team, and he just doesn't seem the same as what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been in the gym. I've not seen the type of training they do, so I don't know if it's vastly different to what he did before. But he seems to have coincided with the timing of the Fury fights, which makes more sense to me because hard fights like that take a lot out of you. So, so not knowing the ins and outs of the situation, or the sort of the details of the training stuff, my instinct would be it's more to do with father time and miles on the clock than it is the training.
And then lastly, about late last week, I want to say we got the news that the Fury Usyk rematch will be taking place in December. What needs to change on both ends? Obviously, we've already spoke about the first fight, but with a rematch coming up now and it's in the pipeline, what needs to change on both ends for either Usyk to defend the undisputed titles or Fury to take them off him?
It's it's not a foregone conclusion. Definitely not. I think there's two ways to look at it. I think maybe Usyk had sort of worked Fury's style out, maybe by about 5 or 6 rounds, and he started to get his timing much better. And Fury, if he's going to win that fight next time, he has to do something different. He can't go in there. You know, I spoke about it before when I did the TNT sort of build-up show. I spoke about not trying. I didn't expect Fury to go in with someone with the IQ of Usyk and try and outbox him, even though he's got better attributes in terms of height and reach. I just thought it was a crazy gamble to try and outbox and outthink someone who's so intelligent. The way I thought Fury should go about it was to be a bit more sort of caveman-like and drag him into a more of a dogfight and use his attributes better. And I think when they look back at it now, they maybe will be watching it back and going, we should have gone about it a little bit different. So I think because if Fury goes in there and tries to do the same thing again, I think Usyk does the same job but more clearer this time. Because it was a close fight, but I do think Usyk won it by a couple of rounds. But if Fury fights with the attributes, what I'd said, if he goes into it like he did in the second Wilder fight and takes it to him and drags him into a dogfight, it's a good body puncher, Fury. And we know Usyk has shown a few little weaknesses down there. So I think if he took it to him, it could be a much different fight. If he goes in there and tries to outbox him again, I think it'd be the same result, a bit only wider.
One thing is only come out in about the last day or two. So one of the big talking points after the first Fury Usyk fight is that both men could walk away from the sport after this. But Usyk has come out in a recent interview and said that after the Fury rematch, he's considering going back down to cruiserweight to become a two-time undisputed champion. What do you make of that?
If he can still make the weight healthily, then what an achievement that'd be. But again, at some point, his attributes and his skills and his timing and stuff like that are going to start to wane. And not enough people get out of this sport at the right time. Lennox Lewis was one of the ones who got out on top when he started to recognise that he'd just losing it a little bit, and he didn't wait for it to become too obvious. He got out when he did, with all his faculties and on top of the sport. He got out on top of the game, and I admire that. And he's known for that. People. It's not an easy sport to walk away from. You see so many people come back to it afterwards. So I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but Usyk, for me, if he walked away now, he'd be known as one of the best ever. I don't want him to do what Roy Jones did, where they damaged their legacy a little bit because they go on for too long. And part of that for me was him going back down in weight after a certain amount of time. The older you are, the harder it is to make weight. So for Usyk to go back down in weight now could be a real struggle for his body. So I don't want him to make the same mistake as someone like Roy Jones did, because for me, Roy's one of the best to ever do it. And his legacy's tarnished a little bit now because of the way his career finished. Whereas if he'd have walked away after the Ruiz fight, when he was heavyweight champion of the world, he'd probably go down as the greatest fighter ever. And now he's just known as one of the best. So I think Usyk should get out while they can at the top.
James, some very valid points. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time as always. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. And best of luck with the upcoming fights. I know the stable, everyone's got a fight date booked in pretty much. So best of luck with all the fights. I'm sure we'll catch up again very, very soon.
Top man. Cheers, Josh.